Smooth grooves going on Tell It Like It Is Tuesday. On the Tuesday night edition of the Buddy Martin Show, the madness has started. We are ready to roll. The tournament is on. Walter Clayton Jr. is named first team All-American by the AP. And later we'll be joined by Florida basketball assistant coach Cynthia Jordan. We'll have Rob Brown of SEC Sidelines, executive producer Brendan Martin, and of course our man Zach Goodall of 247 Sports, talking the NCAA Tournament, spring football, and much more. But it's all that and more on Tell It Like It Is Tuesday, on the Tuesday edition of the Buddy Martin Show. Let's go.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
The madness has started in my very own hometown of Dayton, Ohio. The first four is on the move. The first game of the first four has taken place. Alabama State beat St. Francis 70-68 and will take on the top seed, the Auburn Tigers, in the tournament. But shout out to Dayton, Ohio. Been rocking with that first four for quite some time. And, you know, if you've never had an opportunity to make it to my hometown, I mean, that's an event they embrace completely. I mean, they've had heavy hitters there. Obama brought the Prime Minister of Great Britain at one time. I mean, it's a big event there, and it's something that they really take personal there, Rob. So with that, we'll welcome in Rob Brown of SEC Sideline Sports, Brendan Martin, executive producer of Sideline Sports Network and all things Gator Bait Media. How you guys doing tonight?
You're muted, but I'm
Rob,
doing good.
He ain't ready to go.
I'm gonna get a shirt that says I'm muted.
So,
hey, I listened to that in driving back from running right before the show, and last second, and Matlock, Tony Matlock played at Memphis with Penny, and his son missed the free throw. They got a lucky break, but the Hornets are in. It'll be a fun game.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, like you talk about that first four, Rob. You know, it's something that the people of Dayton, Ohio, I want to give a shout out to the Gym City. They really embraced that. They fought to keep it. You know, they wanted to move it to maybe some more what you might call sexy locations. But that first four has really become an event now, and it really kind of sets the tone. We used to have to wait till that Thursday at 12 o'clock, but now you kind of set the tone and you get that thing going. So, you know, the madness has started, and, you know, both Gator teams are in the postseason. Later on, we'll have Florida women's basketball assistant coach Cynthia Jordan will join us as well. I just got a message from Zach Goodall, but I think we'll be okay. And she'll talk about everything from the women's team in the WBIT, but also as a former point guard. You'd like to get her thoughts on somebody that we all feel, you know, a great deal about is Walter Clayton Jr., who was named to the first team AP All-America team, the first Florida Gator to garner first team All-American honors, which is interesting, Rob. You find that? I mean, as I went through, I was like, that can't be, but even guys like Joakim Noah and Al Horford were just second team and third team performers. So Walter Clayton here in 2025, you know, we had guys like Vernon Maxwell and others. He is the first team All-American in Florida history.
Well, it was a shock because it was on X last week. On Buddy Martin was asking if he was really the first All-American. And Janai Broom's the first team All-American in Auburn history.
Wow.
I mean, this is I don't think we realize how far behind we were as a league in basketball compared, say, to the ACC, Pac-12, Big 12, and the Big 10, and the Big East.
Yeah,
as a
no doubt.
conference. And we're making up ground fast.
Right. And before we go to Coach Jordan, go ahead and talk about our sponsor, one of our great sponsors, the people at Meldon Law. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Meldon Law, we won't back down. And once again, as the spring starts, going to have a lot of giveaways for you. Tickets to baseball. They do plays, softball tickets. I mean, soccer, everything. But what they do most is they're a law firm that if they don't provide a service that you're looking for, they can point you in the right direction to somebody that can help you with all of your legal needs. So Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators, Meldon Law, we won't back down. And with that, we bring in women's basketball assistant coach Cynthia Jordan, recruiting coordinator, all things extraordinaire. Been a great asset to the program, helped usher in a top 10 class this past season. You got your brackets filled out yet, Coach?
Lauren, first let me say hello to Gator Nation. I appreciate it. I actually just did a women's bracket just with a group of my teammates, so I got to do a men's bracket. I just saw Alabama State just got their first win in program history on a heroic last second shot rather.
Yeah. And for our listeners, we Gatorbait has a special promotion going. We're kind of going head to head with the folks up at Auburn with Ernie's brackets. You can see the QR code there. Scan that. We want to get as many brackets in as we can from the Florida fans going at it with the Auburn Tiger fans. But if you win this bracket, you actually get a traveling trophy. You could put it in your house. You could put it in the office. If your homeboys got a spot you want to put it in, but that's a traveling trophy. You get that trophy, and that's something to really go home with. So, get into Ernie's brackets and definitely want to see all the Florida fans get involved with that. Because, Jordan, you guys got a little postseason action going on yourselves Thursday. Unprecedented 4 years in a row of postseason play under Kelly Ray Finley. And just tell people, what this game means to not only the program, but what's going to be going down on Thursday.
Thursday is another opportunity for women's basketball to bring home a championship. And what people need to understand is we're in our building stages, but the WBIT, as it's called now, has been a springboard for many teams that have had great success in the NCAA. It started there. So we are very much approaching this opportunity as we're going to compete for a national championship.
And we were talking about a little bit earlier, Coach Jordan, Walter Clayton Jr., I know you saw, was named AP first team All-American, the first All-American in school history, which is crazy with the history that Florida has had. But as a former point guard yourself, what do you see from Clayton Jr. that, being a former point guard, playing at a high level, something that he does well, and then, to kind of piggyback off of that, you have a pretty good point guard yourself in Liv McGill, just a freshman. But I know, there's even been some comparisons between the two that they almost mirror each other, Clayton just being a little bit older. But what do you see from Clayton? And then how does that translate to maybe, where Liv McGill may end up before her career is done here at Florida?
I mean, Walter, hands off, is a leader. At the end of the day, he's a leader. He has a great feel for all of the guys, who needs what, where they need to be. So he knows how to pick his spots, but also by getting everybody involved. So he has a great mix to his game and also competes on the defensive end of the ball. And it really is amazing to know that he is the first with all the great players that have come through the university.
Yeah. And, now I know you spend a lot of time with Liv McGill. Do you have her kind of say, hey, come to the game, watch Walt move around, little nuances to his game that she may be able to add to her game, after making first, being an all freshman selection in the SEC, possibly a freshman All-American, but making that next step as once again, you guys get ready for the postseason, but then, even going forward in the next year.
Well, Liv, she's a student of the game, so she watches basketball, just basketball, period. Whether it's NBA, WNBA, college games on the both men's and women's side, even the one-on-one stuff, unrivaled. She's always watching basketball or something related, whether it's interviews, podcasts. So she's always trying to learn, just leadership and what that looks like, what the pros are doing, because, that's the path that she's on. So we're just right now just focusing on overall understanding the speed of the game and making decisions at that quick level. So she's still transitioning from high school to college in that regard. But at the end of the day, she's a competitor and she's gonna compete. So that is gonna cover that's gonna speed up her process.
For sure. Now, Rob, Coach Jordan, she played for Don Staley. Were you her first point guard right out the gate at Temple?
Yeah, so that's what our history is. We like to call ourselves the firstborn,
Okay.
our class, and we were her first class, so we weren't there her first season. We were seniors in high school, but we were the first to say yes when she got into this thing 20 plus years ago.
Yeah, and Rob, it's interesting as we get into March Madness and we talk about the Ernie's brackets, but it's amazing what in the last 3 to 4 years what the women's game has become and to rival. I mean, it's great that the men have some star power because the women kind of took center stage last couple years in the Final Four. But I mean, we're gonna have some high drama pretty much every day of the week with these tournaments going on.
Yeah. Well, you will. The women's, we always say this every time you talk about it. It's a purer form of basketball because it's not played above the rim. It's not about the dunks. Everybody trying to get on Sports Center. And someone like Dawn Staley, and she spoke to the Birmingham Tip-Off Club last week. And I wish I could have gone down there from Memphis. I did not have enough advance notice to schedule it, but she played at Virginia, and y'all were her first team at Temple. Are you from Philadelphia?
No, I'm actually from Chesapeake, Virginia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. God Almighty. So you were at Temple, played for her. She's amazing. I got a question for you, and you hear this a lot. And the women's game, and they were talking to UCLA's basketball coach, their women's coach, yesterday. I heard her on a national show on Sirius XM. Growing the game, branding the game, because you've got NIL now. Is that accelerating that? And you go to a school like Florida to where you can go bring in some talent, because this is year 3 for Todd Golden, and I'm sure y'all work with him in co-branding.
That is a great question. And so I had this in my back pocket, whether you guys asked or not. So to actually be able to answer the question that's asked,
Yeah.
it's like this, right? Coach Golden, Coach Napier, and Coach Kelly, they came in at the same time, right? Yeah. And you've seen the success that they've had in year 1 and year 2. And they've been able to springboard it by NIL. Whereas women's basketball at Florida, we're on a slower pace in our process because we don't have the investment at that level where it needs to be if we want to compete. If we truly want to compete for championships, we need that level of investment and commitment that's out there. And we know it's out there and we know it works because we're seeing it right before our eyes with the tremendous season that Coach Golden and Coach Napier had this year by being able to get the pieces that they need from, the top of their roster to the bottom of it. Whereas we've really remained with the old school recruiting process and building relationships and getting people that truly want to be a Florida Gator. And then they get, whatever NIL that we have available. But it's not our people that are coming. They want to be here for the Florida experience and the relationships that they've built with the staff.
Yeah, and we're not going to keep you too long, but I want to speak to that because I think that's a testament to where, you know, where Kelly Ray Finley is in her development of a program. I mean, speak to her and her ability to build relationships, to continue to get high level talent where the resources may not be, you know, where, you know, I think you guys are working on that, but where they may need to be, but you're still able to bring in some high level talent like Liv McGill, like Miara O'Neal, like Layla Reynolds a couple of years ago. Just speak to what Kelly and her personality, her ability to coach young people and mold them and continue to have a group of people that want to be a part of this program.
Yes, so Coach Kelly, you know, she's very relatable. And, you know, before any way to build trust with these athletes, these families, you got to be honest. And she's willing to be honest, whether it's the good, the bad, or the ugly. And so people have that respect for her. But, you know, she goes about every day just in a positive fashion, just upbeat and loving. And I think that's something that these young people really appreciate, considering all the pressure that they have. Because, you know, to whom much is given, much is required. And so no matter what the dollar amount is from NIL that people receive, you're expected to perform at a high level. And that's a lot of pressure for young people, especially when they have to perform so that, you know, they can provide for their families. And it's unfortunate that some people are in those situations where they have to not only be a full-time student athlete, but also make sure that they're able to provide for their families.
And that's you know, I know that's we'll cover that, but Rob, it's funny how that's become, you know, always kind of the sidelight is you do have, you know, those individuals where when they come to school, it's like they carry the weight, which speaks to any college athlete, any sport. A lot of times they carry the weight of the entire community, the family. I know you see it at Auburn where it's like you're the guy, you're the girl, you're making this happen for everybody. And it's amazing with even the NIL. I think that's even exacerbated that responsibility, so to speak.
I mean, I would say this to you, to Coach, as a financial advisor for 34 years, I've never seen a family ever hand out money to 18 and 19 and 20-year-old kids. They put it in age-banded and incentive-based trusts to where they get it at 25, 30, and 35. If they get it, they've got morality clauses. They've got to graduate. They got to do things. The other one is the incentive-based. For every dollar you earn from your job, you get X number of dollars from the trust. I would think one thing y'all could do at Florida, and I'd recommend this to any school, and I'm an Auburn grad in full disclosure, but I've been dealing with Gators all my life. Auburn's been playing Florida in everything, but I would talk to them about, hey, whatever NIL deal you get, we're going to put it away so it's there long term. But you're right, most super wealthy people, you go back, there's a grandfather, and I know some people like this. He had a 7th grade education, and he sold cars and catered food, and that turned into billions. So the first generation employs, the second enjoys, and the third destroys. You got an opportunity. You can make a living with your hands, but you can make millions with your mind. And you've got an opportunity as a coach now with all this money floating around out there. Mm-hmm. If you go plug into that, I think that gives you a recruiting edge right there. Just say, hey, we're going to build something for the future. You'll have some now, but build it because you get a degree from Florida. Come on. That's worth 50 bars of gold. It's academic. It's a great school. And the women are easier to coach, in my opinion, Loren, than the men. I have 2 boys and 2 girls coached. So I can tell you from volunteer coaching, girls are so much more mature when they're younger. Boys are like a bull in the china shop. You don't realize how lucky you are, Coach.
So with that, Coach, let us know, make a plug for this WBIT. We know it's spring break, so we need everybody to come out, bring your kids. It's going to be a great atmosphere. No students, should be easy parking, but bring as many as you can. Bring your family. If you're not out running around Disney World, everything, pull up on these young ladies because it's a fun team to watch. They play a fun brand of basketball. But I'm gonna let you close it out, Coach, with give us the real on the WBIT and the Florida Gators versus Northern Iowa. And then give us a pick in both sports for national champion for the women and the men.
Okay, well, Brendan, that was great advice, and actually, I was talking to one of my teammates about that. So I have a business degree and just a financial background, personally, and I actually saw something today that Syracuse, I think he's a new coach at Syracuse is doing. About in regards to that, but I'll leave that right there. Now, Thursday night, Gator Nation, is the opportunity to continue to come out and support women's basketball at 7 p.m. But we have to create our energy. This is a very unique opportunity to hang a banner. And yes, we would hang a banner if we do win a championship. So you always have to remember, people always remember the first. So be the first group of fans that cheer on women's basketball that leads to a championship, because you will always be remembered. 7 p.m., the O-Dome, come out and support. Hey, if they got a heartbeat, be loud and proud at 7 p.m.
All right, and then give us your pick. Who wins it all? Women and men.
Well, on the women's side, they're family to me, so I'm going with South Carolina.
Okay.
And with that said, on the men's side, it's going to be the Florida Gators.
Uh-oh.
So, Auburn, you had a great year. It's been fun. But make no mistake about it. Todd Golden and the fellas will be holding up the trophy on April 7th.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope to be there. And from your lips to my ears, Coach, thanks for joining us tonight. And good luck. We'll be there on Thursday night to support you. And thanks a lot for coming on with us tonight.
Okay. Appreciate
Enjoyed
you.
it, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
All right.
She's sharp. I mean,
yeah.
I guess she got her degree from Temple. I mean, damn. And that's such a big deal, Loren, to sell getting a degree. I just think the women are more coachable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a woman, if you get a 20-year-old girl and she's getting some big NIL deal, she's going to be thinking like, guys want to go buy all kind of stupid stuff. And the women usually will put their foot down. You don't need another four-wheeler or a side-by-side. That's a non-revenue producing asset. It depreciates the minute you drive it off the lot.
Right.
Put that money in the stock market and let it grow. You can make a living with your hands. You can make millions with your mind. So get the education. But I do think girls are so much easier to coach.
Right.
Especially at that age, Loren.
No doubt. Before we get going with Zach will be on in a few minutes. Zach Goodall from 247 Sports. We want to talk about Titan MRI, North Central Florida's newest premier independent diagnostic testing MRI facility. Locations, and I think they're going to have a new location in Ocala. CJ said she's sorry for calling you Brendan, but I know you took it in stride. She said, sorry for calling you Brendan, but Titan MRI, locations in Lake City, Gainesville, Ocala under new management. Joe Calorio is doing a lot of things. I think he's getting involved with not just, obviously always been a great partner with us here at the Buddy Martin Show, but also with, I think, softball, basketball, and other sports in the Florida community. So, really appreciate the people at Titan MRI. No insurance, no problem. No appointment, no problem. Claustrophobic, no problem. They have the big machines. But So we really appreciate the people at Titan MRI for sure. So, Rob, you into the first four, man, or is it something that you kind of wait to get into?
No, I was out running and I was driving back from the park before the show, and I was listening to the end of that. And here's the deal: it's also personal. Hearing Tony Matlock, the coach of Alabama State, talking about he'd been on the phone with Penny Hardaway Monday morning talking about this game up in Dayton, and then his son in his 126th start was starting for him at Alabama State. So I think, look, it is a big deal because look at the reaction. Do you think they're not celebrating on the campus there in Montgomery? With what they just did, and then they get to play Auburn 45 minutes away. I think Auburn wins, but bottom line is they are one of the two most talked about schools in America tonight because they're going to be the first two to win in the tournament. Now, if I'm going to Dayton, Ohio, though, Loren, I'm going to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I'm going to pay somebody to take me to that morgue and find those frozen aliens that have been up there. Loren, it's true.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Yeah, I mean, they always say that, man. It just is like a new Area 54 or whatever they call it. But that's a neat place, man. It's one of the largest Air Force bases in the world.
It is.
So I mean, it's just one of those things where there's a lot going on in Dayton. We always go back and forth with the people in Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, because they built the airplane in Dayton, but they actually flew it in North Carolina. So North Carolina people kind of piggybacking on, piggybacking off our success, so to speak. But I mean, it's great atmosphere. UD, University of Dayton, is always for a mid-major squad, is always one of the top schools in attendance. I mean, you're talking, 12,000 people sold out for every game. And the first four will be, no different. So, I mean, they're always ready to roll. And with that, we're going to bring in Zach Goodall, who joins us having some issues, some health issues a little bit, but is still, happy to join us. We're going to talk a little bit about this March Madness, but also the Florida football team and what's been going on. Zach's thoughts on spring football and all things Gators. How you doing, Zach?
Gentlemen, I'm doing great. Yeah, don't mean to give anyone a scare. This health issue is I hate this time of year and the pollen that comes with it. I can't even look into my camera right now.
Oh, man, that's all right, man. We appreciate you joining us for sure. Zach, I know you're at pretty much everything, covering it for 247 Sports and all the things that you all do. But I know you're at basketball. Your thoughts on Walter Clayton Jr. being named the first team All-American? Were you aware of that before that came out? Did you know that he was the first team All-American? Because I mean, I would have thought, like probably you did too. Joakim Noah, Corey Brewer, Al Horford, even guys like Mike Miller and Teddy Dupay, back in the day, had never been, first team All-Americans.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to wrap your head around with all the talent you just listed off. And for Joakim Noah to be the only All-American really in general, even as a second teamer, like it's hard to fathom, but I mean, you look at what Walter Clayton's done in his 2 years here and the build up to the player he's become this year, especially incredibly deserving. And when you put him up in that echelon of Gator greats, we can look back with nostalgia and historic importance and think about how great they were and how it's hard to really put Walter Clayton up with them. But when we look back on his career, as soon as it's done, especially if this team's able to push all the way or come close to it, he'll absolutely be deserving of being in that group.
Yeah, no doubt. And early in this first half, North Carolina leads San Diego State, making a case to for their rightful place to be in the tournament right now, leading 10-6 over San Diego State. What makes this team unique, in your opinion, Zach? You watch them. Our very own Buddy Martin, the man on this show, thinks that this team is possibly as good as that 07 team, just as deep. But that's another argument for now. Obviously, they got to win a national title to be compared to that team fully. But in your in your opinion, what makes this team special?
I think I'd have to go with the depth, but not just, the fact that they're deep. The fact that for a team that, it's pretty good defensively, but I think their bread and butter is obviously being able to drop as many points as they do on anyone, really, any night. And they've got players that can step in off the bench or step into roles where you might not profile them as elite caliber shooters, and they can step up to the challenge. I mean, you think of Tommy Hawes' progression as a shooter. For Denzel Aberdeen to be able to step in and make shots the way he does, Urban Clavsar even. I mean, I don't think anyone could have predicted that, but that while his role is, obviously much more minimal than some of these starting and rotational guards, that's special. The fact that anyone is really at any night, at any time, any night is able to step in and put points on the board when Florida needs it, that's going to end up allowing them to beat a lot of the teams that they'll face in the tournament.
And as we speak of the tournament, remember to get into the Ernie March Madness tourney. Scan that QR code. We're going at it with the people from the University of Auburn, Auburn fans, Florida Gator fans. Let's not let the Auburn fans outdo us now. So get involved, get on this Ernie's March Madness tourney. Got a traveling trophy. You can sit it, you can show it. We'll get you on if you win it, we'll get you on the Buddy Martin show, let you show off that trophy, but you can't win if you don't get in. So get into that Ernie March Madness tourney for sure. Zach, you look at the draw the Florida Gators got, you look at Auburn's road, Duke and Houston. If you look at any of the teams, and I'm sure you've looked at the brackets, but you got an interesting second round matchup possibly with the Florida Gators versus either the Oklahoma Sooners, a team that they beat soundly once before, and then the two-time defending UConn Huskies led by the wild man, the man Danny Hurley. Some people say first family of college basketball, so to speak. But I mean, when you look at all the brackets, which, if you were to say what number one seed may not make it to San Antonio, in your opinion, what team would that be?
It's a good question. I figure Duke, right? If anything, just based off of where's Cooper Flagg going to be at for this tournament. Like, we know that he's expected to be out there, and I don't think that he would miss this for the world, given the, lack of major severity of his injury. But at the same time, is he going to be the same player? Is he going to be the same guy that Duke has relied upon all season long? And I know that's a bit of a cop-out, but I mean, it's just, I think all of these teams are exceptionally talented. The question is which SEC team maybe knocks one of them off, given the strength of this conference this year at the same time.
Yeah, Rob, what do you think?
I've got, well, you had to pick, remember Sunday night on Scarborough Knows on this channel, he made us all pick our Final Four. And Zach, I'm an Auburn grad, but I've got Michigan State coming out of the South region. I don't have Auburn. The way they've played lately. And I'll answer a question from Robert Turner and Perry Mason on the show here tonight. The only reason Auburn got the overall number one seed is because of that 16 quad one wins. And the other part is the NCAA wrongly, I believe, doesn't factor in your last 10 games. Because if they did, and Auburn deserves it because the way the system's written, but Florida is the best team in the country right now. It's close, but it's really not close. So, and I've got Houston, Alabama, and Florida, and I've got Florida playing Houston for the national championship, and I got Florida to win. And I say that because I really think that. I'm a Todd Golden fan. I've been watching him a while, but I think my favorite player on that team is Walter Clayton Jr. He's just an alpha male leader, and he keeps that team under control. And I just like the demeanor, the psych game of Todd Golden, and NBA coming after him. I don't know. He's a college guy. I think he loves it, and Florida can go toe to toe with anybody with money. So I think Gators win it all.
No doubt. And Zach, you've been in front of Todd Golden, been in many press conferences. If there's one thing that you think is his biggest asset, would it be analytics? Would it be X's and O's? Is it player development? Based on what you've seen from him, limited maybe practices that we've been able to attend, What do you think is his best asset as a coach?
He's a new age coach, no doubt. So I think analytics is a strong suit of his. I think we can point to a lot of the things you mentioned. Player development, X's and O's are strengths of his. But we were actually on the 247 college football show yesterday. They were asking everyone, what can your school's football team rather learn from the basketball team? And for me, when it was put like that, I looked at Todd Golden's success in the transfer portal and aggression in the transfer portal as I would say his biggest strength, and certainly one that I think while the football team has had some success, they could learn a thing or two from how good Todd Golden's been in the portal. I mean, I don't think there's many misses. Like if we're considering Sam Alexis, maybe, but like even that, they've got plenty of depth on the front court, and they've got players for the same reasons I was saying earlier that can step in and make plays when they need to. And there's still, I think, upside for Sam Alexis to make an impact here in the tournament, so long as he's healthy, even.
Right.
And, you've got Walter Clayton, Elijah Martin this year, kind of leading that charge, Ruben Chinyalu being another one. But, I mean, this goes back over his 3 seasons. I think that really it would be tough to really pinpoint a true miss in the portal, I think, of Todd Golden's, which – that kind of success rate is incredible, but also it shows that he knew what he was looking for going in. And there was obviously a lot of aggression there to go and get the guys that he wanted. I think he's done a phenomenal job.
Right. And I think a lot of people forget, Sam Alexis got another year in the program. So another year to get stronger, another year to improve, and think about, year 1 to year 2 with Thomas Houck. What about year 1 to year 2 in the program for Sam Alexis too? Because I think we all agree he definitely has the skill set for sure. So, I mean, I think that, when you look at him going forward, you can see the same elevation of the game here in the next year or so. But with that, and you mentioned football, spring football is in swing, full swing. They're not about the halfway mark. I think they're about maybe 4 or 5 practices in. Zach, you correct me, maybe 6, 7, but not right at halfway, but obviously taking a break over for spring break. What have you seen, and what has maybe impressed you most from what you've heard or what we've been able to see with the limited time that we get to see practice? What has been the most impressive to you with this football team this spring?
Yeah, and I was wishing that we could have gotten out there Saturday, but then I realized they were having practice and we didn't get a viewing window. So we've gotten to see 4 so far of the 5. And I don't want to overhype it too much just because we've not yet seen them in pads, full pads, I guess I should say. We've seen them in shells for 2 days. But man, I think especially with these young freshman wide receivers, Vernell Brown and Dallas Wilson in particular, I wrote a story about them tonight. Just some of the things coaches and fellow players have said. And I know Tyreek Sapp and Jordan Castell, who are out there, maybe not so much Tyreek Sapp one-on-one, but they're going against these guys. And they're both especially just hyping Vernell Brown and the speed, acceleration that, certainly we've seen too. I think especially when he gets into the intermediate level of the defense, he hits a second gear and is able to separate. And he's a sharp route runner as well. Obviously football is something that he's, studied and had a lot of reasons to understand throughout his entire life. So I'm sure that he's a step ahead of the game compared to a lot of freshman wide receivers. But he and Dallas Wilson with a different skill set, being able to go and make more acrobatic plays, plays at the sideline using a pretty strong big catch radius. I think that they've both definitely at least met, maybe exceeded expectations again in the limited sample size we have. And I know that kind of narrows in on one thing, but if I were to pick one big takeaway so far, it's been that those guys have pretty consistently impressed me.
Right. And you and I talk a lot of football, talked a lot of football over the past 2 years. And I think we would agree, even though there's a lot to be said about where the Florida offense really is or isn't. I think we could put the new play caller thing to bed for the near future, because I know you're tired of talking about it, and I am too, and even Rob's tired of talking about it. But I think we could all agree, if this team was able to get off the field on 3rd down the last 3 seasons, it'd be a different football team. The narrative on Napier would be different. Where is this defense now, Zach?
I think it's in a really good spot. And I mean, it's crucial to have the talent coming back that they do. And realistically, I think Caleb Banks or Tyreek Sapp could have declared for the draft. Not necessarily to say that they would have been, day one or early day two picks, but they had options. And I think that they probably would have impressed in the draft circuit, and they chose to come back. And while it's not necessarily all NFL talents returning, I think that they can feel confident in the players they bring back who now have experience, had pretty strong recruiting profiles throughout the rest of the defense. You look at linebacker, especially. I know that that's the one everyone will point to with Miles Graham leading the pack. And it's young. I mean, Grayson Howard being the veteran of the group, Jaden Robinson has a lot of playing time too, but it's still a young group that has yet to really scratch the surface, in my opinion. And we're starting to see those guys come along. Secondary might be where you have some question marks, but even still, there's, when Devin Moore is healthy, big if and when, he's still a very, very good, productive cornerback. And they've got young players there, same kind of deal, that are getting ready, I think, potentially may be impact players for this defense. And Cormani McLean is certainly one that catches a lot of people's attention, I think rightfully so. At safety, they've got two returning starters, one in Bryce Thornton, who really broke out in the second half of the year. It's just solidified really across the board. And I think you can look at the offense too and say the same thing from a talent perspective. They've got guys who know the system. They obviously have continuity, with Ron Roberts being the first multi-year defensive play caller that this team is going to have under Billy Napier. There's just a lot of reasons why the arrow is pointing up for this defense. And for me, it starts with the talent and what they were able to get back.
And Rob, we talked about it a lot on this show last year about maybe the SEC was slipping a little bit. And the reason I asked about the defense even more so, and I'm glad Zach kind of brought up the linebackers, and we'll kind of take a step down to the front four here in a minute. But I think in the past few years, because maybe the SEC did a great job, maybe in the last 7 years, of really recruiting some almost generational offensive talent. Yeah. But you and I both know what separated them from the pack was they got after you in the trenches. And I think that's where, as a league, you talked about Sankey getting everybody together and saying, okay, I want to be good in basketball too. We're going to hire good people, things like that. I think the SEC needs to get back to, and obviously being an Auburn guy, this. I mean, you got tons of names, Tracy Rocker and other guys that have just been, Auburn made their bones in the trenches. Florida has had some great pass rushes, the Curses, the Harveys, a lot of different people. But I think at the end of the day, the way they're going to start to reassert their dominance is to start, once again, getting it out of the mud.
Well, if you don't have depth on your front seven, 2 and 3 deep across the board, you're not the SEC that we saw 3, 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. That's where we have built our reputation. Florida athletically, you can say what you want. Last year, when everybody was picking out a burial suit, flowers, and a headstone for Florida, I was a lone voice in the wilderness and picked them to win 8 games. Again, sometimes you're too close to a program and you start thinking, oh my God, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. But I look at Florida and I look at this thing called the Blue Chip Index that you know what I'm talking about, Zach, that is an indicator of your talent, 4- and 5-star talent signed in every 4-year cycle. And I use that with my picking stocks and money management mind that I use with managing money. And that is, Florida last year was number 9 on the talent index. 63% of their roster was 4- or 5-star talent. I think some of those guys had not been, maybe put in positions to succeed. But one thing I've learned about Billy Napier, and I've learned this, he's kind of a stoic. If you study the Stoics and Marcus Aurelius and history, there's a lot of strength in being quiet. Sometimes the loudest guy in the room is just the most insecure or the dumbest guy in the room. Billy Napier is getting a lot of criticism. Too many men on the field in the Utah game or whatever like that. But he held it together last year when things could have fallen apart. And that last 5 games, they could have won 4 of those 5. The Texas game without DJ Lagway healthy in Austin, that wasn't happening. Remember that Georgia game was tied at 20 with 7 minutes left. Okay? Think about that. And you beat Florida State. It was like clubbing baby seals. They were so bad. And then you get down to LSU and Ole Miss. I mean, I was listening to the Florida Gators and, Shane Matthews, and I texted him during the game. I said, damn, you're 3 or 4 plays ahead of what's happening. Kind of like his coach, Steve Spurrier. But, Zach, I think Florida wins 10 this year.
I could see him winning 10. I mean,
Did you just fall out of your chair?
Yeah, no, but I mean, like, I think from my opinion on the talent alone, yeah, this should be a roster capable of winning 10 games.
Yeah.
I understand where they're coming from internally, where they say that, and granted, I think they have to say this, but their goals, their ambitions are college football playoff or bust. And that's not me putting words in their mouth either. Billy Napier may not say that, but there are players out here saying that now. And I think they need to have that confidence. I mean, A, just to be able to have a chance to get to their goals, but B, because like they are that talented of a team. Really, to me, it comes down to, like you mentioned, the too many men on the field against Utah. And not that was necessarily a repeat incident this past season, but things like that, or offensive play calling, some situational stuff that is the talent being put in positions to succeed at all times, really, I think is the root of what will make or break the season for Florida. Because I don't think, unless this DJ Lagway injury situation is way worse than we realize, and there's a chance he's not playing at some point this season, like I see no reason or any excuses to be made from the roster building perspective anymore. I think that this team is extremely talented.
And Zach, there's been some additions to the staff. We talk about the defense. What have you heard maybe from the players, or just what have you observed for guys like Robert Bala and Vinny Sunseri that have been added to the staff? What have they been able to bring to this defense that is working its way back to be one of the top defenses in the conference?
So far, so good. And I guess it's a little bit limited, especially just having to only have talked to them after like 4 practices. But like Darren Wilson, for example, there's the familiarity factor, I think, with these cornerbacks, having been a quality control analyst back in the day here with the staff. It was easy, right? Devin Moore was talking him up the other night. And it's been easy for him to get back into the flow and get in a rhythm with these players. And kind of to the point of coaching consistency, it's not great to have to swap out a cornerbacks coach again. They're 3rd in 3 years, but at least this guy comes in with a little bit of know-how and relationships too, obviously being important there as well. Vinny Sunseri, another one that I think is relatable. And I think these players I think that, for this staff to be as young as it is, and some people might question, the experience for some of these coaches. I don't necessarily think you could do that with Vinny Sunseri, given where he was, last year. He was about to be a coordinator for the first time this year, if not for coming to Florida. His experience with the Patriots. He's a wise coach from what I'm hearing, and I think the players appreciate that, as well as his young energy. And Robert Bala, I think it's really kind of the same story. He is a younger, energetic coach. And from Ron Roberts' perspective, while he still carries the title of linebackers coach, he doesn't have to go and oversee the unit all the time. Austin Armstrong, when he was the play caller, was also overseeing the safeties, for example. And Patrick Toney did the same thing. It's got to be good for Roberts, and I think the defense as a whole, and we've talked about this plenty on the offensive side and what Billy Napier might stand to gain if he were to give up offensive play calling, but it's got to be beneficial for Roberts that he gets to take a step back, see everything with a bird's eye view, rather than having to dedicate so much of his time to running the linebacker meetings and stuff like that. So the reviews are good, seemingly, from the players and the people around them, and I can definitely see where Florida stands to benefit from having a little bit taken off of Ron Roberts' plate.
Yeah, and the front 4, just real quick, speak to where they are. I know Jamari Lyons we saw as limited, but going through individual drills. Like you mentioned, Cam coming back, Tyreek Sapp, and others. And I know they're really high on like guys like LJ McCray. But where's the front 4? And could this be a unit that could maybe improve on, I think they finished the regular season top 10 in sacks. I think they finished 13th or 14th after the, obviously after the championship games and the bowl game. But, Gerald Chapman was able to stay at Florida, kind of flirted with the NFL. But now they have a cohesive group with some experience, just need to stay healthy.
Yeah, I think it says a lot about Chapman, not only flirting with the NFL, like a real potential job there. And who's to say whether he turned it down or they chose someone else. But Bill Johnson being there is, a connection that made that, I'm sure, very appealing for him. He didn't take that, and he definitely turned down the LSU job. What does that say about the talent in this room and where he thinks it's going? So another one where the coaching is consistent, and especially for that group, that he's got so much to build off of based on the way they ended last season. And it's another room that's super deep, especially on the edges. I think more so defensive tackle has some stuff to prove. But even still, like a DeAndre Robinson and Mekhi Barrow came in as true freshmen, Mekhi Barrow being a huge one. Not necessarily someone I expected to play as much as he did. And they flashed. They impressed at times. They were able to make some plays and look like comfortable defensive linemen playing in the SEC and not in the cupcake games either. They were getting run at the end of the season. I look at his edge room in particular. Having Sapback is great. I think George Gums, while he is about to be a redshirt senior, and I'm thinking almost 23 years old, we got to remember still, this is his third season as an edge rusher. There's still untapped potential there. And he's shown year-over-year growth at the position. Even as he made the jump from Northern Illinois to Florida, he's still got much better than he was the year before. So who's to say that there's not another potential leap in there? LJ McCray being another one. They moved him to the jack edge rushing position. I'm interested to see his fit there just because of the type of body he is. If he were to succeed as a weak side edge rusher, I'm thinking that he's more of like a Montez Sweat type of player. And I think Florida would be very happy to have a Montez Sweat type of edge rusher standing there for the next 2 years. Jaden Woods, the freshman coming out of Kansas, is the last one I'll mention too. I think everyone we've spoken to that has thoughts on anyone from the defensive side of the ball has said this kid, he's different. He's a different kind of worker. He set the tone. That's what Tyler Miles, the strength and conditioning coordinator, said about him. Billy Napier has said multiple times that this is one of his top prospects in the last class. And when I turn on his film, especially from back in high school, I think that he looks like a polished edge rusher. He's got growing to do. He's, I think, 235 pounds, so he can continue to grow into his body, but he's got a pass rush plan. He's got a lot of different moves already in his arsenal. He's athletic. He can bend. I think that he's got a chance to be a really productive player for Florida down the line too, even if it's not this year.
That's great. Well, you see why we love Zach, Rob. He's on it, man. But one last thing before we close, and I want to stay with this because I think almost in a positive note, the three of us at times have been very critical of Coach Napier and some of the things he's done, but I do see some growth there. I see him growing into this position, being the head coach of the school like Florida. And like I say, coaches get to improve. They don't stay the same. They get to change. They get to change the way they practice, the way they organize things. But Rob, you first, what have you seen from Napier, just kind of, from a distance that you see has really changed since he first landed in Gainesville?
Well, what I've seen out of Billy Napier is the first season started off great, and he lost an engine. Second season, he lost another engine. He's halfway across the Atlantic at 40,000 feet. And you know what he said? Give me a cocktail. I got two other engines. And then he got DJ Lagway at quarterback. And that's so important because the most important 6 inches on the football field and in life is between your damn ears. And I think if you study up on Billy Napier, and I am so blessed every morning to get to do this show, Sidelines, talk to these people, coaches, players, whatever, from all these different schools. He's pretty damn successful. He won 41 games at University of Louisiana, and it was easy to call him Sunbelt Billy. Hell, I've been critical. Who hadn't? But you know what? He held it together. He didn't panic. He just said, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?" And he's punching back. Remember, his dad coached from a wheelchair successfully. This guy is not going to be scared. I think he's mentally tough. And the fact, you got a massive fan base at Florida. Brendan talked to 6.5 million people. There's a lot of people that are expecting a lot out of you. And by the way, Zach, it's the first time I've been on the show when you've been on here, but you're one of the most knowledgeable and best informed and honest people I've heard from. So I hope we get to do this again. And I recommend everybody follow this guy because he's damn good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I appreciate that, Rob. That means a lot. Thank you.
Yeah. And
But,
Zach,
I mean,
you as well. I know, like I said, we talk a lot, but what have you seen? What improvement? Where has he made the biggest improvement in the last 3 years?
I don't know if I should call or if I could quantify this as an improvement, but it's something that I've uncovered recently, and maybe this was previous knowledge to you guys covering the team last year, and I just wasn't here for it. But it's his moldability to his players at the end of the day, and not necessarily from a schematic standpoint or anything on the field, but like as a person, as a leader, right? As someone. And I think that these players have always been willing to run through a wall for him. That's kind of what we've always heard, is that these players have always respected Billy Napier through thick and through thin. But I've heard, and I've talked to a couple people about after the rough start last season, when they went into that first bye and they changed the practice structure. He just came in and kind of threw everything to the side and said, okay, we're doing this differently. And I don't have all the specifics, but I know there were there were almost games to it. Like there were competition aspects to practice where they were in their week off. They weren't installing. While they were studying ahead for future opponents, they weren't doing a typical game week's worth of practice, and they made it a fun environment. And they I think everyone just remove the stress off their backs and go out and enjoy practice as a team. And while it wasn't necessarily perfect right out of the gate there was still, they had their ups and downs, I think, until they really closed the year strong. But you could tell that there was already a different energy, and certainly that the noise from the outside was bouncing off of them. They were bought in on Billy Napier, I think, on one another, and that really resonated. I think that really shined through as the season played out. They got better, and I don't know if they would have gotten better if not for the redeveloped energy and the bond that strengthened between them. And at the end of the day, from all I can tell, from what players and what people have told me, that was Billy Napier's idea. And it just kind of, again, I'm not sure if that's an improvement, but that is something that he was willing to put aside, the way he was doing things, and just try and, strike a chord with his players. And he did that.
All right. No doubt. Well, I mean, like you said, if it breeds positive results, I would say it's an improvement for sure. So we want to thank our final sponsor before we close out, Renstar Medical Research. Renstar has been with the Buddy Martin Show from the beginning. Great friends in Ocala, just a wonderful family, the Brantleys, the Sorrentinos, a superior medical research facility, seeking tomorrow's answers for the health questions of the day. Renstar Medical Research. Rob, who you got on tomorrow night? Or tomorrow morning, excuse me.
Yeah, I know it's
yeah,
Brendan lives in the studio.
We've been rolling, yeah.
I know. Now we got Coach John Brady, former LSU coach, color analyst on the LSU Network, talking SEC basketball. Oakley McFerrin, our intern, Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal in Knoxville, and we'll be bouncing it around. In fact, why don't you pop on with us if you can tomorrow at 9:30 Eastern, if that's possible, when Vince will be on, and if you're available. Okay.
Yeah, hey, me.
Yeah. One question before we go.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the nickname of Daytona Beach Seabreeze High School?
I do not, Zach. You know about that? I have no idea.
I don't.
Yeah, the sand crabs.
I'm not sure.
The sand crabs.
I don't know why I think of stuff like this.
Right. Hey, it's been a long day, man. We've been rolling. But no, Zach, I appreciate you, man. Keep up the good work. Check out Zach on 247/CBS Sports, doing great things there. Rob Brown, SEC Sidelines Sports. I'm your host, Loren Meadows. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on Tell It Like It Is Tuesday. And hit those brackets, man. Ernie's brackets, scan that QR code. Florida Gator fans, let's get after those Auburn Tigers. Have a good evening.